everybody, and welcome to the live Q&A. We are live all the way from Manchester in the UK, and we also have Emmanuel. Emmanuel is our ambassador. He is my co-host today, and I'm so delighted that he can join us. Emmanuel, tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you? Anything like that. What do you teach?
Well, thanks, Alex. I'm glad to be here today. Yeah, I'd like to introduce. I'm Emmanuel. I'm from Nigeria, Southeast Nigeria. I'm a classroom teacher. I teach middle and high school students. I take English classes for my students. And of course, I've served as a Teach2030 ambassador. Yes, my tenure just ended this May. So I'm happy to be here. You're welcome. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Emmanuel has been the most wonderful ambassador, and I asked him to co-host with me today, and I was so delighted when he said yes. So thank you so much for joining me. I have got people saying hello to you. Shibangi says hello all the way from India. So thank you very much. Now, we're delighted because we've had a few questions for this Q&A, which I'm so pleased about. And one of the questions we received was all about the role of a teacher. What is the role of a teacher? What does it boil down to? And I wondered, Emmanuel, what is your feeling on what a role of a teacher is?
Oh, thanks, Alex, for that question. Actually, when you're talking about the role of a teacher's role can be viewed from different perspectives. Yes, you could view the role of a teacher as a person, as a profession, as a professional, and then you could view the role of a teacher in a society, okay, as a contributor to nation building. Okay, if I go back to the role of a teacher as a person, a teacher is that person that's trained, prepared to impact knowledge to young minds, a teacher. And then as a professional, a teacher is that person that is not just trained, but professionally prepared. And that's why we talk about having professional training, professional certification, and more like Teach2030 is doing, having to do with professional development. So you need to develop yourself as a teacher. And that's the role the teacher needs to play. And then when you talk about the role of a teacher to the society, nation building, the teacher is responsible to build or to provide a nation with the adequate skilled manpower that would drive the economy of the nation. So this, you could be a teacher from this perspective. It's not just a teacher standing in the class teaching. So this involves the role of a teacher. Thank you, Alex.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for talking about us in terms of society. And in terms of in the classroom, I think a lot of people have the impression that teachers should just stand at the front and impart a load of knowledge, and that's it. And that students should do exactly what the teacher tells them to do. What do you think the role of the teacher is in the actual classroom itself, rather than in terms of how society sees it? What do you think about that?
Okay, the role of a teacher in the classroom. What you just said is what we used to have, the traditional teacher standing before the class, maybe dictating and asking the student where he has. But the teaching landscape is no longer the same today, Alex. We're in the 21st century. And today we're talking about a learner-centered pattern of learning, teaching. Okay, so the teacher is more like a coach. You guide learning, you guide the process of learning, and you allow the students, okay? You provide the learning to suit the learning style of these learners, because these learners, the students, they are different attainment level. So you need to break down your curriculum objective. And this has to be learner-centered. You have the learner in mind, because you want to carry them, you want to pick them, you want to mold them. These are people that need to be guided so that learning will take place, effective learning, there will be change in behavior. And for me, that's what the role of a teacher is in the classroom.
I think that's a really good point, Emmanuel. You're talking about breaking down the learning, and I think we're talking about supporting our students and guiding them rather than just dictating at them and to them about what it is that they need to do. And when you talked about breaking down the learning, what did you mean by that? What's your interpretation of what that means? What can you do to explain that to our listeners who are with us now?
Okay,
How do
by
you break down
breaking,
the learning?
yes, okay, what I mean by that is one of the roles of a teacher in the classroom, you need to break down learning. You don't just give the loans of the curriculum to the students. You need to break them down. You need to simplify learning. You need to individualize learning. You need to break down learning by picking up your students from their different attainment level. You need to come down, to their level. You need to individualize your learning because you know your student learning styles, and then you adopt the best strategy. And this is where I appreciate one of your programs, the Teach2030 program, okay, planning lesson to reach all learners. So it's actually basically aimed at breaking down the learning objective, okay, to success criteria so that your students will make consistent improvement in learning, and that way you could effect learning. And that's what the role of a teacher basically is in the classroom. Thank you.
I think that's a really good, you've covered so many things, Emmanuel, things to do with breaking down the learning and the learning objectives, and there's so much to think about, and you've pointed people into the direction of the planning lessons to reach all learners course, which we really appreciate, because actually I think it's a really good course to really consider exactly how you break down the learning. And you also mentioned the word success criteria as well, which some people might not be familiar with. What did you mean by success criteria?
Okay, Alex, thank you again. When you're talking about success criteria, actually one of the ways you can measure if learning has taken place is by effecting or, a kind of bringing in assessment. And you could do that. Maybe in the course of teaching, you want to bring in formative assessment. You want to check if really the approach you've adopted is actually effective. It is making the required impact in the learner. And so you could do that to ensure that there's consistent improvement in the learner. Okay, so success criteria in that aspect is it helps you bring in assessment techniques, like I mentioned, the formative, not just the summative assessment at this time, so that you could make sure that there's consistent progress in learning, which at the end of the day, the objective of the curriculum is to make sure that there's an evidence, okay, for learning. Because if there's no improvement, if there's no evidence-based learning, success-oriented learning, then you will discover that learning may not have taken place that is supposed to be. So it's all about breaking curriculum objective to learning criteria.
I love that, what you just said, evidence-based learning, that idea of really evidencing that the students are learning. And, you talk a lot about formative and summative assessment. Formative, the idea that we're assessing them all the way along, and summative is the idea of assessing them at the end. And I guess I'm going to put you on the spot now, Emmanuel. I'll give you a minute to think whilst I tell people my favourite. But I just wondered, have you got a favourite formative assessment strategy? Have you got one? I'll tell people my favourite whilst you think about your own favourite formative assessment strategy. I like writing all my students' names on a slip of paper and putting them into some sort of tub or basket. And then what I like doing when I ask a question, rather than no hands up, is I pull a name out of the little basket. I even sometimes get students to pull the name out of the basket rather than me doing it. And I think that's quite nice because they get to feel a bit involved, and it's almost a bit of a reward because they know that if they have received praise from something, then I'll say, come on, you come and pick the next name out of the basket, come and answer, so that they can ask the question. And that helps with no hands up. Everybody doesn't know who I'm going to ask. So that's my favorite formative assessment strategy. Do you have one, Emmanuel?
Sure, I do. There are different formative assessments you could deploy, but I think the common one I usually do with my students is to use the inquiry method. I want to check understanding. I've been teaching, I've been talking, and it makes it learning engaging. So I want to inquire, I want to check understanding, and then I could throw a question. I want to know, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And then you get their different viewpoints. And that's some information, a feedback to you as a teacher. You need to know where you need to go back, where you need to reinforce and emphasize. And yeah, to me, that's one major formative assessment I use, and it helps me to, know areas I need to build on, I need to shape, and to know exactly where learning has taken place or not.
Thank you very much. That's really wonderful to hear. Thank you. That's fantastic to hear some formative assessment strategies. And have you got anything you can tell us about one of your lessons, anything to do with planning or anything at all that you can tell me, something that's really engaging or a really good activity you've done, or anything at all that you thought was really super in your classroom recently?
Yes, actually, Alex, I'm excited about my training with Teach2030, and I want to talk about the growth mindset for teachers and learners. It actually has transformed my entire way of teaching, and my students too. Before now, there's this you kind of appreciate students, especially the intelligent students in class, and then those that the average students feel, wow, it's like we're off the class and all that. But this time, with the help of this teacher development program, that's the growth mindset for teachers and learners, we no longer praise achievements. So we see room for improvements. But for myself as a teacher and my students, okay, you've done something good. Well, why do you think it's good? What's the evidence for this? How do we know this? Not just clap for him. He's doing well. That's good. That's excellent. That's fantastic. Okay. So, but I make other people see reasons. Oh, John, you said this is 3. How did we get 3? Are we in agreement class with Isaac? And then, okay, Isaac, can you show us? Are you sure we can have it as 2? So it helps the class to grow. And I think I'll recommend that to other teachers too. Growth mindset has really helped me as a teacher and my students. And I recommend that you could try it. That would be great for us. Thank you.
That is so wonderful to hear. We're so happy that it's made such a difference in your classroom. And I think you're right. So many people just say, well done, very good. But it's not about that. And it's about praising the skill rather than anything else. Now, I have one final question for you, Emmanuel. We have opened the ambassador program. Is there a reason why you think that some people should apply to be an ambassador? Can you give us one good reason?
Oh, having served as an ambassador for 3 years, I'm going to tell you, the experience is awesome, it's great. But then I also tell aspiring ambassadors that the pathway to becoming an ambassador with Teach2030 is quite rigorous and extensive. Okay, not just because you want to be an ambassador, but I think you need to have this teacher development program. And it's so interesting because Teach2030 is a charity and she's providing it at no cost. So I think, apart from the fact that you need to apply or become a Teach2030 ambassador, to me it's an honor. I want to appreciate you once again for that. But I think the experience is better, because it has a lasting effect in your class. Like I told you, my experience, it has this transformative, impact in my teaching and learning. It makes me a lifelong learner. I do I'm a teacher, but I'm also learning, from colleagues, from students, and so we're all agrees with information and all that. So yeah, I think it's good to go for this 2030 program, and it's also good to reach out if you have the opportunity to apply for an ambassador. It's a wonderful experience and it's interesting. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me, Emmanuel. We are so delighted that you have been here today. You are such a wonderful ambassador, and we are so glad that you could give up 15 minutes of your time to tell us all about the teaching strategies that are important to you and what teaching means to you. And Thank you so much for joining us. We're really, really grateful. And if you do want to become an ambassador, then our applications are open. All you need to do is visit teach2030.com and you will absolutely be welcome to be an ambassador. Shabangi says thank you so much. So I'm passing that on to you, Emmanuel. So thank you for joining me. And Emmanuel, if you want to write a blog, we are happy to publish it. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining me, Emmanuel.
That would be great.
Have a wonderful
pleasure,
day.
Alex. Thanks again.
That is my pleasure. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Goodbye.